What's up, cool cats and kittens? It's Uncle Mad here today with special guest youth correspondent nephew Parker. It's a marvelous Monday, which means we're going to do an episode of Marvel Mondays. If you missed the last one, I'll put a link to it somewhere. You'll be able to find it and go back and watch it because we started Marvel Mondays last week with the very first Marvel Cinematic Universe movie, Iron Man. So this week, we're on to the next movie that came out in the series, The Incredible Hulk. If you're following along, make sure you watch the one that's actually called The Incredible Hulk and stars Edward Norton, released in 2008. There's actually another Hulk movie that came out earlier starring Eric Bana, just called Hulk. That's not a part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That's not a part of what we're doing. So make sure you watch the right one if you're following along and watching the movies with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, right, Parker?
Yeah.
Yep. Uh-oh. Ice cream man going by again.
It keeps going around and around.
Oh my goodness. All right, well, if you watched our first episode where we covered Iron Man, we're going to follow the same pattern. We're going to do the gist of it, go over what actually happens in the movie. We're going to go over notable notes, things that I saw and picked up on while I was watching the movie. Then we're going to go a little bit behind the scenes, talk about some stuff that happened when making the movie and subsequently afterwards. And then we'll just give some final thoughts before we move on to be continued into the next movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So let's get to the gist of it. Parker, I'm going to let you take this. Tell everybody what happened in the movie.
So, at the end?
Don't start at the end. You got to tell them the whole movie. You can't just go right to the end. What happened in the beginning? Remember he's at the soda factory?
Oh, yeah. And, he got cut and his blood went, into the soda.
Mm-hmm.
And then, someone drank it.
Someone drank it, yeah. That was actually Stan Lee. That was his cameo in this movie, was he accidentally drank soda that had been poisoned with the Hulk's blood. And we don't see it, but it is implied that Stan Lee may have turned into a Hulk himself.
But, like, he didn't turn into Hulk yet.
Right, but what happened when he was at the soda factory after he lost his blood? Didn't people come try to get him?
Oh, yeah.
And he turned into the Hulk for the first time and beat them all up?
Uh-huh.
And then he escaped and...
Yeah, and some of them died.
Yeah, some of them died when he turned into the Hulk.
Yeah, because he's strong.
Right. And then what did he do next? He went back to America to try to get help?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But that didn't work.
No, didn't work. He still was the Hulk, right?
But, the Bad Army still got him.
Yeah, the Bad Army kept coming after him.
But Hulk, killed him.
Yeah, Hulk kept killing people. But then the other guy got turned into a Hulk too, didn't he?
Yeah.
And then the two Hulks fought each other?
Uh-huh, because one was the army, which was powerful than Hulk.
Yeah, but who won?
Hulk.
Okay, so what was the end? Now that we got through all that, you were going to say at the end. One Hulk beat up the other Hulk, right?
Oh, yeah. And then, they tried to save it. He tried to save everyone.
He did, though, didn't he? Didn't he save everybody?
But not everybody.
Oh, yeah. He did kill some people. Well, that's it. That's the gist of it. That's everything that happened in the movie. So let's go on to notable notes. Things that I noticed while we were going through the movie. Once again, not Eric Bana in this movie. Edward Norton played the Hulk in this movie. This movie actually kind of originated as a sequel to that Hulk movie, but eventually moved away and kind of stood on its own.
Oh, and wait, at the very end, the General is actually Iron Man.
No, the General's still the General, but Iron Man comes and sees the General.
Yeah.
Right? That's right, we'll get to that. There was an opening chase sequence that seemed very Jason Bourne-y. I don't know the timeline of when Jason Bourne came out, but it definitely seemed like it might have had a little bit of inspiration here where Edward Norton's jumping through buildings in Brazil and going from rooftop to rooftop trying to run away from the army who's trying to capture him. There's a really funny scene where he tries to say in Portuguese, "Don't make me angry, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry," which is the famous Hulk catchphrase from the 1970s Hulk TV series, but his Portuguese is not so good, and he actually says, "Don't make me hungry. You wouldn't like me when I'm hungry," which confuses the Brazilian men he's trying to threaten. They're like, "What? Why would we not like you when you're hungry? That makes no sense." Lost in translation on that one. We mentioned the Stan Lee cameo in this movie. There's always a Stan Lee cameo in these movies, and this time it was Stan Lee drinking some Hulkified soda. There's green all over this movie, I guess because it's the Hulk. There's people drink green drinks. All the sodas are green.
Yep.
At the end of the movie, when the general's in the, what you call the beer store, he's drinking a green drink.
He didn't live in a village. He lived in like a junk place.
Yeah, it's true. He lived in a junk place.
With like, those aren't real houses.
That's true.
All junk.
During the movie, this kind of goes to the testament that I really, even back then, didn't really understand that how the movie rights worked, who owned what characters, because in the movie, Hulk is corresponding with somebody called Mr. Blue, and they're trying to work together to cure him of being the Hulk. He refers to himself as Mr. Green. Mr. Blue is his online friend. When I saw the movie, I thought Mr. Blue might be Reed Richards of the Fantastic Four, because, you know, wears the blue costumes and whatnot, but at this point, Marvel didn't own the film rights to Fantastic Four, so it couldn't possibly have been Reed Richards. Actually turned out to be Samuel Stearns, who in the comic books eventually becomes one of the Hulk's enemies, known as the Leader. And actually it teases in this movie that might happen in a future movie, because he kind of has a little incident where some of the Hulk's blood gets spilled on him and his brain starts swelling up all creepy-like.
Yeah, and that's when Bad Hulk came.
Yep.
Because that was the bad army.
As Parker mentioned, at the end of the movie, the general's drowning his sorrows in a green cocktail at the beer store, as Parker called it when we were watching it. Most people would call it a bar, but beer store works just the same. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, shows up to let the general know they're going to form a team. What's that team going to be called, Parker?
The army.
No, the Avengers. Oh my goodness. But funnily enough, this was a scene that throughout the history of the Marvel movies, you would expect to be a post-credit scene, but it's not a post-credit scene here. It's just the last scene of the movie. There actually is no post-credit scene in this one. It's probably, if I'm not mistaken, the only Marvel movie where that's the case. And another interesting thing that you learn later on, in timeline, this movie is actually set after the events of Iron Man Part 2, which is the next movie we're going to watch, but this was released before Iron Man Part 2, so that's where things get a little wonky and timey-wimey, as the doctor would say. That's all my notable notes. Parker, do you have any other notes from the movie? Nope? All right, well, let's go behind the scenes and go to making the movie. This movie was directed by Louis Leterrier, I don't know. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. I don't know what it is. And interestingly enough, he supposedly wanted Mark Ruffalo to play the Hulk, but Marvel Studios wanted Edward Norton, which, if you know what's coming, Edward Norton is going to be replaced by Mark Ruffalo when we get to the Avengers. So kind of a weird sliding doors type thing there. The original opening sequence filmed for the movie featured Bruce Banner going to the Arctic in an attempt to commit suicide. And when he does so, he accidentally turns into the Hulk and creates a large shift in all the Arctic glaciers and whatnot.
Yeah, like, and in the Hulk, like, they're all trying to kill him, but nothing can kill the Hulk.
Yeah, he tries to kill himself in this deleted scene, but all he does is end up causing the glacier to collapse. And there's a brief scene where you can see Captain America's body frozen in the glacier when he destroys it, but they ultimately decided Hulk trying to kill himself wasn't very friendly or very family friendly, and they cut that from the movie. Edward Norton apparently rewrote the entire script and was rewriting it day by day as they were shooting it. This is one of the things that, you know, supposedly led to Marvel deciding to go with a different actor to play Hulk in future movies, because it was kind of not something they wanted to keep dealing with, was their lead actor rewriting and changing stuff as they went and filmed the movie. However, Norton did add the character of Doc Samson, portrayed by Ty Burrell from Modern Family, and a few other Marvel characters that were sprinkled in there. This is actually one of the movies that probably has the most Marvel connections. but only didn't lead to anything because they never made a sequel to this. One of the main reasons they never made a sequel to this is Universal Studios still holds the rights to distribution for Hulk solo films, even though Marvel Studios owns the rights to make the movies. And if you know anything about Universal and Disney, which would eventually acquire Marvel, they don't get along very well. They have a lot of headbutting, particularly, in the theme park industry. That's one that we know prominently from Universal Studios and Disney competing down there in Florida and also in California. So Disney does not want to do anything to benefit Universal, which putting out a solo Hulk movie likely would. Universal doesn't want to sell those rights back to Disney because that would benefit Disney. So since this movie came out and Disney acquired Marvel Studios, they've kind of been at a stalemate and unable to make any more Hulk sequels, which they set up ideas for about 50 different Hulk sequels in this one, and it's never come to be. This is actually, in running time, the shortest Marvel Cinematic Universe film. It's also the lowest grossing, which probably also didn't help its cause for getting sequels made. As I mentioned earlier, it actually was originally envisioned as a sequel to the earlier Hulk film starring Eric Bana, but as time went on and it continued in development, they moved further and further away from that movie and decided to kind of make it its own thing and allow it to be able to be integrated into the new Marvel Cinematic Universe that had been started with Iron Man.
But the other Hulk was different too. Good Hulk.
Yeah, they actually end up with a second Hulk.
Yeah, because the spine was all bigger.
And that's the evil Hulk, which in the comic books he's called Abomination.
And he was bald, and other
right.
Hulk had hair.
Yep, it's true. Very good points. As I mentioned, Edward Norton would be replaced by Mark Ruffalo the next time the Hulk shows up, which is in the Avengers.
Yes.
That's coming up in a few movies for us. Partially it was Ed Norton.
And I watched the new Avengers.
Yeah, he's watched the new Avengers one time. Edward Norton has claimed that he left because he didn't want to be associated with just one character. That's what actors say a lot when it comes to superhero roles, but there's been other reports that it was his difficulty to work with as an actor, his constant rewriting and changing of the script that they didn't want to deal with moving forward, but who knows? It's all Hollywood hearsay. That's all I have for behind the scenes information, so I guess we'll start looking ahead and to be continued. So we've wrapped up The Incredible Hulk. The next movie we'll be watching in the series of Marvel movies is Iron Man Part 2, which, as I mentioned earlier, in the chronological order, in the actual timeline of events, actually takes place before this movie, but it was released after this movie, and we're watching the movies in the order they were released. So if you want to follow along, be all schooled up and educated and ready for the next Marvel Monday, your homework assignment is to go out and watch Iron Man 2. Before we reconvene for the next Marvel Monday. Parker, you got any final thoughts on Incredible Hulk before we wrap up today?
Nope.
All right, well, I'll make sure and I'll put a link to our previous Marvel Monday so you can go back and watch the Iron Man episode. Come back next Monday when we go Iron Man 2. Before you leave, though, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the bell for notifications so that you don't miss future episodes of Marvel Monday. Also, give us a like with that little thumbs up button down below.
Yes.
Leave your comments if you noticed something in the movie that we missed, that we didn't talk about. If you got any questions about the movie that we didn't answer here in the video, I'll jump in the comments and answer those there.
And we don't want this.
Yeah, we don't want this. Do not do this. Only this. Because why would you do this? Just don't watch the video if you don't like it. Right?
Yeah.
Go do something else. Go play Minecraft. Go play Fortnite. Parker really likes Fortnite, right?
Yes, I play it every day.
He plays it every day. That's all we got today. Do you know what I say at the end of the videos, Parker?
See you later, bye.
No, see you later, bye. That's not what I say, but I say what Sting says.
Sting?
I say, don't stand so close to me.
What?
Don't stand so close to me.
Don't stand so close to me.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Keep waiting.
When are we gonna stop?
I'll tell you when.
Okay, whatever.
What?